want to welcome everybody. We're about ready to start. We have a really good problem tonight. That is not enough room. So there are benches back there. We'll be otherwise standing room only. We'll be happy that we have this problem. Okay, so I welcome everybody. We'll start off with some announcements and introductions. Once we get through that and into the questions, there will be no further meeting activities. It's just going to be the answer to the program of the town hall. It's going to be the questions and answers that are given. And we're going to stop at 8:30. And then, of course, everybody can mingle as they wish. So let's get with it. The first announcement is we are having our annual pie auction and cutie pie competition and bake sale on Saturday, June 23rd, from 4 to 6 p.m. Now, if you would like to bring a sweet or treat or bake for the bake sale, or if you have an adorable toddler that you want to run for cutie pie, we would really appreciate you getting in touch with us at Southwest Missouri Dems, SMMODEMS @gmail.com. Sign up and get more details. Now, many of you, no doubt, have not been to our pie auction. And I want to tell you that it is a lot of fun because we have Mr. Peck Kelly. Where are you, Pat? Ready to stand up? Stand up! There he is. Pat will give you enough entertainment. You'll think you've been to a comedy show. And it is really a lot of fun. So we really hope you can make that. Now, our July Town Hall. We would like you to join us. It's right here in this room, and it's going to be about right to work. Now, we know this is a topic that's all over the place today, but a lot of people don't understand how the vote should be made and what it really is about. So this is really going to be an opportunity for education. So bring anybody that you perceive is on the fence that doesn't quite understand what's going on with this. And we will try to do our best to educate on it. It's very important to us to be successful in that ballot. In addition, now, our August Southwest Missouri Democrats quarterly candidate breakfast will be held in the meeting room of the Angus Branch Restaurant, 117 Farm Road 190 in Monette, Missouri. And it'll be at 9 a.m. on Saturday, August 4th. After that breakfast, we'll have a rally and a launch a GOTV canvass in Berry and Lawrence counties to help get out the vote for the right to work petition. We also have Southwest Missouri Democrats sign-up sheets in the back. If anybody wants to volunteer for any activity for a particular committee, we ask you to look those over, and if you do, then we appreciate your signing up. Also, check us out on Facebook. We are being videoed live by Joan Higgins, sending it out all over the district. We really appreciate that. Okay, and so you can share this as a live feed, and you can check it on Facebook, and you can submit questions that way as well. So we invite that. So we hope we have all the questions that you all want answered tonight. We have a great set of candidates. And let's see, before that, I want to introduce our candidates for other offices in our area. First of all, I'd like to introduce Carolyn McGowan, who's running for the senatorial district. Carolyn's doing great things out there. She's going to surprise me. Mark my words. Next we have Terry Hanna, who is running in the second. And down in McDonald County, we have Jerry Sparks. Oh, I guess it's your county as well. Jerry Sparks. House District 159. So, in addition to that, Elizabeth Lundstrom, House District 161. These are all very fine candidates, and if you feel the urge to support one of them or another, either financially or volunteering your time, please don't hold back. They will appreciate it. Okay. All right, we're going to start off the questions by asking a question of the day. And we're going to have each candidate address this question. After that, we'll be taking questions from the audience. And using those questions, there will be a 2-minute response from the person who is answering the question and a 1-minute follow-up for candidates who want to add their own point of view to that. Okay? So we'll start. Now we have our candidates in order that they are on the ballot. And first we have Vince Jennings.
Hey.
John Farmer de la Torre. Kenneth Hatfield. And Jamie Schoolcraft. Okay, to start off our questions for the evening, there are right now 2 pieces of legislation in the U.S. Senate which aim to protect children from being separated by their parents at our U.S. border. They are bills sponsored by Senator Dianne Feinstein and signed also by our great Senator Claire McCaskill. And we have a bill sponsored by Senator Cruz and signed on to by our Missouri Senator Roy Hunt. Please speak about which if these bills you could sponsor in the House. Which one would you do and why? Start with you, Vince.
Okay, I support the Americans for Family, or is that correct? Yeah, the Feinstein, Claire McCaskill bill. And I think it's a travesty that kids are being separated from their parents. Humans are humans. And seeking asylum in America is not a crime. It should be respected by our government. And so not only do I think the McCaskill-Feinstein bill should be supported, I would support it, but also that there should be quick, rapid processing of these individuals who are trying to enter our country. It shouldn't be months or years, and they should be able to go through the proper channels and so forth at a rapid response instead of years. Thank you.
Well, a Cruz blunt bill makes it easy, doesn't it? Yeah. So, yeah, maybe. I mean, really, these guys. I'm the first Hispanic candidate to ever run for U.S. Congress in this part of the United States, as far as I know. And those kids who are being taken away, half their blood is my blood, and I definitely sympathize with them. What our government is doing is no less than a human rights violation, as far as I'm concerned. It's good to see that there's an executive order movement on this. Feinstein, McCaskill generally, typically, I could say reliably, are thinking about working people and thinking about those who are vulnerable. I would trust that this, I haven't read it, but I would trust this legislation is solid and is for these children and to reunify these families. Government should not be in the business of separating families. That's a trauma from which these children will never recover. Psychologists say so. And so I would support Feinstein and McCaskill, without a doubt. Thanks.
Hello. Yeah, I would support the McCaskill-Feinstein bill. I'm sure the Cruz bill has about billions of dollars that's wrapped up in having a wall built, which we all know is the wrong thing. I heard celebrity who was a Japanese descendant who lived in this country when they had the intern camps. And he went on the record to say, even though I was in one of these camps, my family wasn't separated, as brutal as that is. We were a country of immigrants. We all came over here, somebody in our lineage, to prosper, to seek religious freedom, economic freedom, freedom to do what they wanted. And for our current administration to use that as a political tool to try to get money to go somewhere else that it's not needed. We need an education infrastructure, and we don't need to put it in useless things like walls. People need to be welcomed here. We used to be the shining light of democracy and freedom, and I think we should stand up and continue to do that. That's it. Thank you.
Mr. Scott. I would absolutely support the Feinstein bill, and I think it's important to do so, but I don't think it goes far enough. I have 3 kids, and I would walk around the world if I could guarantee that they would have a better life than I have. I would do anything for them. We have always been that shining light, that beacon of hope. But let's not forget, our history on immigration is not that rosy. We have been horrible at it. I watched the documentary on Ellis Island, how if you had anything wrong with you, they'd house you and ship you back. That's not the fantasy they painted when I was a kid in history class. Look how we treated the Native Americans. Look how we treated the Jews when they were on a boat coming here to escape their tortures. What do? We turn them around. We have to start charting a new history for our country, one that is truly open to everyone who wants that American dream. In Congress, we need to introduce legislation that makes immigration easier and consistent and fair. You shouldn't be first of the line because you're a rich family from Saudi Arabia, and if your skin's brown and you're coming from the South, you have to stand in 3 months worth of line to try to get into a port of entry. That's ridiculous. And that's the kind of stuff we need to introduce into legislation to change and to make it a fair and balanced procedure for anyone who wants to enter this country.
Our next question is, we'll start with Mr. Farmer. The question is, how can Social Security be sustained and protected?
First, we have to make the decision that Social Security should be sustained. This view is not shared by Paul Ryan or Marco Rubio and some others of the GOP Leadership Caucus, with whom I disagree. We're going to have to look at adjusting caps. We're going to have to, those folks who earn a little bit more are going to have to contribute. And it goes beyond Social Security, it goes to other aspects of policy. I think we begin with that. And the idea that we're going to run out of money is actually overhyped. But we're going to have to take steps. That is true. Now let's begin with leadership and decide that we're not going to make the funds inside of these Social Security trust fund accounts available to the open market. We will not have casino capitalism and gambling with our retirements. Seniors deserve to be protected. They deserve a dignified retirement. But we have to make the choice to defend our retirement and defend those funds. And I will do it. Thank you.
Would you like to add to that? Very well. Okay, before we proceed, I want to make sure all our local candidates are introduced, and we have been joined by Angela Thomas, who's running for House District 160. Okay, our next question is for Kenneth Hatfield. Mr. Hatfield, what progressive issue do you most support, such as taxation of the wealthy, funding for education, single-payer medical insurance, or other?
My belief that the single biggest issue affecting Southwest Missouri, the whole country is wages. You cannot make enough minimum wage to pay for your house, to pay for your car, to pay for education, especially not healthcare. It's easy enough and it's simple math. You make about $1,000 a month after taxes. You're short about 3 bills into it. There's no way you can prosper on that. Some say, well, what if you work longer and your wages increase? You'll still be short. Even if your wages are $10 an hour, you're not going to be able to afford health care. You're not going to be able to go get a new education to get a better job. And I believe that we've all seen how profits in corporate companies have risen beyond compare to wages. For instance, tuition has gone up 1,200% since 1973. The wages have only gone up 270%. And it falls into all aspects of life because you have to buy everything in this country. Healthcare, you have to buy your education, you have to buy shelter, you have to buy food. And people prioritize, and they keep the lights on, but they don't progress. Thank you.
For me, I think top priority is Medicare for all. Healthcare is a right for individuals. And if we can take care of health problems when they're tiny and small, then perhaps they won't turn into catastrophic health care concerns down the road. And so Medicare is the most efficient delivery system as far as health care. Once you reach that age to receive it, you're in really good shape. It's the hard part is reaching that age. And anyway, that's the top priority for me.
Anyone else? Mr. Farmer.
I would have to go with single payer with healthcare as well. The white working class individual man, typically without healthcare, will die 20 years younger. Multiplied times millions of lives, we're losing millions of lives, millions of years of human life. And for profit, for nothing else than profit. And so as a society, that is an indicator that we've gone into the ditch. We have an alternative that has been proven, tested, and is cheaper. That's Medicare for all. It is $17 trillion cheaper over 17 years. The public wants it. It's widely supported by both parties, by voters of all stripes, and there is political momentum to go and get it, so we should. And that means all of us banding together and supporting candidates who want that. I do. Thank you.
Mr. Schoolcraft.
I really think our number one priority is investing in the working class in Missouri. And that includes the health care, the education, increasing wages. But it's an investment in the working class, the workers in Missouri who've been forgotten by our current administration, by Congress, and by Senate, and quite frankly, by representation on both sides.
Our next question comes from Facebook and Moms Demand Action. And it's for Mr. Schoolcraft. What is your plan to implement common sense gun laws in Missouri? And what type of safety initiatives will you recommend specifically aimed at protecting our schools?
Thank you for that question. In my life, I have seen some horrible things. I was a paramedic and firefighter for 20 years and a physician assistant. I've seen what the gun can do. How tragic 1 second, that split second, ruins a life, ruins multiple lives. You go to a bank, and what are you greeted with? Bulletproof glass, a safe, sometimes a guard. Why is that? To protect money. I'd give up every dollar in the world if I could guarantee I can protect my kids for the rest of their life. So they can tell me if my debit card has been used in New Jersey within 3 seconds, but they can't use the same technology to do a background check on someone wanting to buy a gun. That's ridiculous. We have got to get our priorities straight in this country. One of the first things I'd introduce is legislation doing actual background checks that make a difference and have true meaning. But then we've also got to educate our kids. In Missouri, you can't go hunting unless you've been in a hunter's education class. You can't drive a car unless you've passed the driver's test because it's dangerous. But you can go to a flea market and buy a gun, or a gun show and buy a gun. Does that make sense to anyone in this room at all? There is more we can do, and we have to do it. We have our priorities screwed up in this country. We've put the value of owning a gun over the value of protecting our children, and it's ridiculous. We have got to do more.
Yeah, so whenever I talk about gun violence, assault rifles, I like people to take a minute and try to understand what is an assault rifle. Well, an assault rifle used to be just a rifle until we slap high-capacity magazines into these weapons. Did they become so much more deadlier? Yes, a flashlight, a laser, a fancy scope on a rifle will make it more deadly. But the real thing that's the killer is the bullet. And when you have a shooter who is walking around with a 100-round magazine, you can't stop him. Any law enforcement person will tell you, military people, that at that point of reloading is when that shooter is vulnerable. And that's even when unarmed people can take that shooter down. So I would like to see legislation limiting magazine capacity. The United States military only carries 30-round magazines. Why do people need to go out buy 100-round, 200-round drums? I think that legislation should also include banning bump stocks, and not just from executively, but from legislation, from Congress. Thank you.
I think background checks are an excellent way to start, as well as digitizing all of the records so that they're immediately accessible for them. But we also need to have a look at not only limiting magazines, but we ought to close other things like the private sale loophole. I mean, that's something we can do. We can ban bump stocks or any other sort of device that's created or will be created in order to automate weapons. And these weapons are only designed for war. Some of them, especially the weapons of war, we need to take off the street. 1 minute. All right, thank you. So we can go a lot further, and we should and we must in order to protect our children. Thank you.
Mr. Jennings.
A few ideas I think we need to do is, first of all, our current gun regulations and stuff need to be enforced. There's too many loopholes that people are using to get around those gun regulations. Personally, I would like to only see guns sold in brick and mortar stores, which means no gun shows. And I think that gun enthusiasts who run in those circles should police each other. If they see somebody that is a threat or not quite there mentally, they should report those individuals. And likewise, if you have a friend or a relative who you think may do somebody harm or themselves harm with a weapon, to please report that individual to the proper authorities. Thank you.
And before our next question, I'd like to pause to introduce Sarah Hinkle, who is running for House District 162. Sarah? The next question is for Mr. Farmer. The question is, who are your major contributors, and would you accept money from the NRA?
I would never accept money from the NRA. Not that they would give it to me. I'm pretty sure I get an F rating. That's all right. Most of my contributions are from just, everyday people. In the range of $25, $100 is a lot for me. I do have a couple folks in the $1,000 range. I got one at $2,700 who's a private donor. I think I'd say Charlie O'Reilly.
Charlie O'Reilly.
Yeah. I've been blessed to have these sorts of donations. But the ones that, I had a kid who gave me $2. He was intellectually challenged, and the $2 meant a lot to him. And to me, that meant more than $2,700. It really did. As he went out of his way to invest in my campaign, what I believe in, and what I'm trying to do, this vision that I have for the Ozarks, that $2 could have been $1 million. Thanks.
I think what we would probably want to do with this question is have each of you respond to that, but it will require a lot of time. So, Mr. James.
Most of my donations that come from one-on-one interaction with individuals. The average donation is $100. And I like to say that I think we have enough money to make it to the primary, which is really nice. So, I do not take any money from PACs or lobbyists or special interest groups or anything like that, just people.
Okay, thank you. Matthew?
I would say my average is about $50. I have no major donors. I'd also like to say something about the NRA. It's a shame that we let 5 million members of the National Rifle Association govern our gun laws. There's way too many Americans here to let that happen. And I think we need to stand up to them, and I think people are. Thank you.
Mr. Stewart.
Absolutely would not accept money from the NRA or any other corporate PACs or anything like that. All my monies come from voters in the area or friends or family that I have in the area. Had 65 people show up to a volunteer meeting the other night, which was amazing this early on in the campaign. And that's where our money's coming from, but more importantly, that's where the votes are coming from. And that's what we need.
Thank you. Our next question is from Mr. Jennings. The question is, do you support making education a 100% federally funded program, including teacher pay, to ensure situations like Oklahoma don't happen again?
Yeah. And is that good? Is that good enough? Now, let me see if I get the question correct. Are you talking about tuition-free education up through college and postgraduate, or?
The question says 100% federally funded, which is a little different than its funding structure now.
Yeah.
So I'm not going to presume to interpret what the question is.
With the college education, I don't know if it would be 100% federally funded, or if the state of Missouri and also local taxpayers would help foot that bill. So I can honestly say that I would like to see all forms of government and all levels of government chip in order to provide college education for individuals. And, the student loan debt is just killing people when they graduate. And how in the hell do you start a new life and a new career when you're so bound up with student loan debt? So whatever the source, whether it's 100% federally funded or, like I said, everybody chipping in on each government level, I do think that should be made available to students who want to attend college.
Anybody else want to respond?
I'd love to.
Mr. Farmer.
Yeah, Missouri's funding mix, at least for the high school, pre-K, K through 12, Missouri, because of its budget, sort of underfunds compared to the national average, and so we wind up getting hit with that. And so having more federal money coming in to Missouri schools in order to smooth out those variances would be a good thing, I think. Then for college, I think that we ought to have debt-free college. I think that would be a good thing. A one-on-one dollar match and a partnership with the states. The return on investment would be adequate in order to repay. And I'm also studying student debt cancellation. We have $1.35 trillion of student debt out there. If we were to cancel it, this is a study, okay? The boost to GDP would be $100 billion a year. It would pay for itself in 13 years. But we have to make the choice to do these things, and we need to make education a priority. Thank you.
Mr. Hatfield.
Yeah, having served 11 years in the Army, I've seen a lot of fraud, waste, and abuse. And I'll tell you right now, where I'd like to take some money from the federal budget, stick it into K through 12 public education is from that budget. They increased the defense budget $61 billion. That's enough money to put 14 teachers in every public school in the country. Yeah, there's so much money there. We have to prioritize our budget to improve the quality of life for Americans. Thank you.
While he's sidetracked, I guess I'll. So right after college, I taught for 1 year in the Willard Public School System. I taught in the alternative school. I was shocked at how little teachers bring home. Less than $1,000 a month. Public educations are promised to our citizens that regardless of who your parents are, the color of your skin, what side of the tracks you live on, you're going to be educated K through 12. And we have dropped the ball as a country. We have forgotten what our priorities are. And we need something. If that is the federal government saying this is the minimum you're going to pay teachers and this is how we're going to help you do it, then that's what needs to happen. But we have lost our way and forgotten how we improve our country. Education is, we're training the leaders of tomorrow. And we do that by pulling out funding and paying teachers even less every year. And it's ridiculous.
Thank you. The next question is from Facebook. The question is to Mr. Schoolcraft. It is proven that lack of nurse-patient ratios affects satisfactory patient outcome. Please explain your theory to improve these ratios.
There are a lot of things we can do to improve these ratios. You know, the ACA, or Obama, the evil Obamacare, as it's described in the news, it did a lot of good things. It made steps in the right direction. Whether you looked at pooled liability, which is a huge issue for making insurance affordable for more people. You talked about increased reimbursement. You talked about preventive medicine. All those things. We have to improve upon the ACA and not just destroy it like the Republicans are trying to do. We need insurance for every American, every person in this country that is subsidized and enforced by the federal government. Medicare for all is the simplest way to do that. Once you do that, hospitals are no longer, like the hospital I work for writes off about 50% of their bills every year because the people are uninsured. 50%. Any other business that did that would go under. So who pays for that? The people who paid their bills and had insurance paid for that. If they were able to make sure everyone was insured, cover that gap, they could have more nurses, they could have more staff. We could have even better medicine than we already have. But right now, people don't have that ability. They can't afford the $1,000 a month for health insurance, which is ridiculous. We give billions to other countries. Take Israel, for example. We give them billions. Guess what they have in their country? Free health care and free education. Why can we not do that? Use the bricks you're going to build the wall with and build schools and hospitals in our own country.
I think another area we need to look at is nursing homes and retirement villages and assisted living places. The reason why is because most of these are profit driven. The bottom line is money. And I know numerous nursing homes that are understaffed and they're just pushing the census as far as individuals taking care of these people. And like in Arkansas, no, it was Louisiana, where thousands of individuals were thrown out of nursing homes and so forth because of lack of Medicaid payments. And so we've got to remember to treat people like people, okay, instead of profit. Thank you.
Anybody else? Next question is from Mr. Hatfield. What steps would you undertake to forge working relationships with other Missouri congresspersons?
Well, I would definitely start by putting people before party, before profits, sitting down, figuring out, here in the United States, with our political system, we have about 20 things that we all agree on, and we got 3 that we don't, and we just stand our ground and we don't cross the aisle. And for the Republicans out there, I like to tell them that it's not fiscal conservatism to take money, give it to corporations, defense contractors, and take it from people. Our tax dollars are our own. Our government is there for us. So we need to use that money for us and not for corporations, war, and other things that are hindering us in the quality of life here. Thank you.
Mr. Jennings, you want to respond? Is that what you're...
Actually, I forgot what the question was. I'm teasing. Yes, I would look forward to working in 2018 with 7 other Democrat Congress people in the state of Missouri. I think that we can achieve a supermajority in 2018, and we can just, can I say, stick it to Trump?
Mr. Farmer.
So I've been on conservative talk radio as a Democrat for over a year until the candidate filing period. And so I spent a lot of time reaching out to conservatives, and I got a lot of conservative feedback. And as a journalist, journalists are trained to be fair. They're trained to deal with the facts. They're trained to be impartial. And conservatives and Republicans appreciate it. They appreciate that, and they appreciated that on air, and they tell me so when they meet me in public. And I think that approach also works in Congress. I think that we're going to have to work with a bunch of guys in Congress who happen to be Republican. And so building those bridges is really important. I appreciate conservative positions in the sense that they have a respect for tradition, well, so do I. I don't appreciate their economic policy. I don't appreciate a lot of their social policy either, so I'm going to stand with Democrats every single time. But where we can find compromise, well, we will, including with the 6 Republicans here. Hopefully there'll be one less. Thank you.
I'm happy to work with anyone who believes in making life better for Southwest Missouri residents, and that's what we need. But the word that bothers me the most that I hear from both sides is compromise. You know what compromise has got us? A failed immigration policy, a failing healthcare system, a failing educational system. We have to stand on our principles, and when they say, well, you have to give us this or we're not giving anything, we need to say, hell no, we know what's right for Southwest Missouri. We need better healthcare, better education, better paying jobs, and I won't compromise. I'll fight till we get that done.
Next question is for Mr. Farmer. What are your views on Proposition A and federal right-to-work laws?
Well, my mother worked in a shoe factory and was a union member. I'll begin by saying I support the Democracy Workplace Act, which Bernie Sanders is out there promoting, and Congressman Buchanan of Wisconsin. I oppose Billy Long's effort to pass a federal anti-right-to-work law. We have a pattern around the country of states trying to do these preemption laws. Whatever the people want, the state goes around, the legislature goes around. So these sorts of efforts necessitate a federal solution. We're going to need a federal solution on labor in order to protect labor and to protect employment power. I think that we can protect unions, and we ought to promote anything that helps unions, but we need to protect and promote worker power and rights in general. And there's a lot of ways to do that. I would love to see corporate boards where 50% or 51% of the board of directors is line workers, like they do in Germany. And I guarantee you, if you do that, you executive compensation packages look a lot different, and you'll see dividend payouts being very different too, right? You know, and there's all sorts of ways that workers get beat up constantly, whether it's, you know, these sort of background checks to get a job. There's so many things you have to do just right even to get a job these days. So, you know, anything that promotes full employment, I stand for, and I will support and back. And as for the unions and Prop A, well, I'm very much for our unions here in Missouri, and I will fight with them every single day. Thank you.
Personally, I'm not a fan of corporate America. I believe that the people are the ones who have the power, and the workers are the ones who have made this country great. And unions are the ones who gave us the 40-hour work week and paid vacation and safety in our workplace. And we need to remember that. And corporate America is trying to destroy unions. And one way of doing that is trying to make Missouri a right-to-work state. So I'm definitely voting no on Proposition A, and I hope that you do too. Thank you.
Raise your hand if you want to hear that.
Absolutely, we need a federal anti-right-to-work legislation. We have to do something on the federal level to stop this madness where they can come in and spend billions in a state and get it overturned, which destroys unions, destroys workers' rights, destroys increased pay and protections. And it's not just that. Look at what they're doing with the EPA, OSHA, all those things to attack our workers. It's ridiculous, and we have to take a stand. When I get to D.C., that's one of the first things we're going to address.
And before we, I'm sorry, Mr. Hatfield.
Yeah, I support unions. These corporations have built their wealth on the back of hardworking Americans. And the Republicans are constantly trying to deregulate, not allow wages to increase. And we've seen it time and time again throughout history. From the railroads, to the Great Depression, thereafter, what helps us. Thank you.
Before I proceed with our next question, I would like to make another introduction to the lady who was our previous candidate for 7th District Congress and who is our current Vice Chair of the Democratic State Party, Genevieve Williams. Okay, the next question is for Mr. Jennings. What do you think about gag orders placed on the recipients of Title V money in exchange for reproductive health services?
Title 10.
Title 10. Sorry.
Can you repeat it one more time? And can I call a friend?
What do you think about gag orders placed on recipients of Title X money in exchange for reproductive health services?
Actually, I have absolutely no idea what they're talking about. I support reproductive rights. Title X. Honestly, I know what it is. I can't think of it right now.
Anybody else want to?
So we're simply,
Farmer?
well, I would simply support. I don't know the details of Title X either. So, but I think that what we want to provide here, and I hope this will satisfy the person sending in the question, is the defense of women's reproductive health and full funding for the full range of services that women need, and to protect that health care to those women so that it's only between the doctor or the provider and the woman. So, you know, as for gag orders, I think using federal funds to beat up women, which is kind of how I interpret this, I think is wrong. I mean, period. So I would stand against any sort of gag order. And I think that's all there is to it.
Okay, can I add one thing? One thing that does bother me is faith-based organizations, nonprofits or whatever, that come off as being how can I describe it? They come off to be like a medical outfit or so forth, where their goal is actually to try to keep that individual from getting an abortion if they desire one. And so I think that there's some nonprofits and faith-based organizations that are using deception in order to try to manipulate women who are already in a bad situation to begin with.
We'll have to limit because you already had an opportunity on school prep.
So Title X money, that's the money that's designated to help with family planning money. And you want to prohibit what the provider can say or refer them to. Some of the legislation has in there that you can't tell them which providers would provide abortion services. Sometimes they don't let you say it at all. I worked for a healthcare company that made me sign a contract when I started that said you cannot talk about Planned Parenthood, you cannot talk about their options, you're to refer them to an OBGYN if they come in and they're pregnant. Let me say this as clear as possible. I support a woman's right to choose. The end of the story. I am a healthcare provider, and I have patients come in, and I tell them what their options are. I tell them where they can get the help they need. But if you want to prevent abortions, then do it through education, access to birth control, access to health care, access to funding while you're pregnant, and after you have the baby.
Stratfield, you want?
Yeah, I can't believe that we allow so much of the different types of rhetoric to be applied from religions, from people saying that it's not their right to choose. This is the United States. To me, we've settled this. Women have a right to choose. And a lot of people don't like it. They don't like the word abortion. They don't like to think of it. But not everyone is thinking about it. That woman is thinking about it. And that's her. That should be within her and her decisions. Many of the problems in this country are because of poverty, lack of health care, lack of jobs. If we would improve those, maybe we would have less abortions and we could move forward because we have a better quality of life here in this country. Thank you.
Okay, so the next question is a general question. We will have each candidate respond, and let's limit our response to 1 minute.
I'd like each candidate to give a brief explanation of where Billy Long might be the weakest against the Democratic candidate. Mr. Jennings.
He has lack of accessibility. He doesn't interact with his constituents. He doesn't have town halls. Any events that he does have is at a corporation that is very regulated as far as the environment and so forth. And basically ignores reporters' questions, and he has his doors locked.
Okay. Mr. Cron.
Yeah, well, certainly accessibility is an issue. The lack of town halls is another. I mean, we have that problem not just with him, but even within, here. And we have to, we have a lot of things we can hang on him. For example, he's voted against 42,000 of his constituents who are on ACA 70 times and didn't come up with a replacement plan. That is unacceptable. Yeah. He has said and put into print that he has not had a town hall in 7 years and he's not going to start now. I mean, what arrogance. We paid this man $1 million of congressional salary and he won't meet with us. I mean, there's so much. His track record with the president is 95%. Okay? He votes like the president's way 95% of the time. All right? Some people in Missouri may love that, but there's enough fair-minded people who are watching right now and see what Billy Long represents, and that is the same thing as the president, and they stand against him, and they stand against the president, and they will stand with us if we oppose Billy.
Mr. Hatfield.
Yeah, so from traveling around the 7th District, I'll say this. Billy Long does not have very many people liking him right now. Most Republicans I talk to dislike him. They want him out of office as well. His party does not have the momentum. His party is not the party of change, of progress like us. We have the drive to move the flag forward in progress and to change laws to help people. Everyone knows that he doesn't do anything. He's authored one bill that's passed since he's been a congressman, and he's been paid $1.2 million. He's literally not working for us. And I think everyone sees that. We can look at our roads, our schools, everything else. Thank you.
Mr. Schoolcraft.
There are so many ways Billy is vulnerable. Anyone seen the Three Billboards movie? So here's 3 billboards for you. Billy Long had no money. Billy Long went to Congress. Billy Long's now a millionaire. Figure that one out. Go home and Google Australian pharmaceutical and Billy Long and see what pops up. Inside trader, but it wasn't because he bought pharmaceutical stocks in Australia instead of the U.S. and made a lot of money off it. Just for entertainment when you get home, Google that.
Thank you. Our next question is from Mr. Hatfield. Will you fight to protect the ACA, or do you think that Medicare for all is better?
I believe Medicare for all is the path. We have a lot of work to do. We're not going to get universal health care in a few days, a few months, possibly not even a few years. We need to expand Medicare. We need to expand Medicaid. And I've been talking to a lot of people about putting profit caps on the insurance industry. People are really mad that their premiums have doubled. I know it. You go look at, I'll go back and look up your insurance company and see how much their profits have gone up. Double. We all know it. So I believe that the ACA is good and we need to work on it. And we'll do that in Congress when one of us gets up there. Thank you.
Mr. Farmer?
Yeah, the ACA is fine. I've used it myself for a couple surgeries, and thank goodness I have it and have been able to, and others have too. I would like to move forward and do better, though, and go to Medicare for all. I think that's really where we need to get to. And I just want to finish up quickly since I have a minute on the last question. Billy Long is vulnerable if we put the right person against him. I need to say that now, okay? He is not vulnerable if we make a mistake. We have to put the strongest person up there. Please consider that. Thank you.
Mr. Schoolcraft.
Medicare for all would be the best case scenario, but we have to start somewhere. I think a brave representative would introduce a Medicaid expansion that covered all children the first day of Congress. And that's the first step we should take, is regardless if your child is, your parents are rich or poor, you're covered for insurance. And that's how we should start tomorrow. We should start with that, move forward from there, and build on it. It's going to take a lot of work to get to Medicare for all, but that's truly where we need to be.
In my opinion, what we need to do is change Congress. Just vote them out, put new ones in. The reason why is because these individuals are receiving corporate donations from the healthcare industry, from the pharmaceutical industry, and so forth. They're going to keep voting the way they are right now. So I just say, let's just start anew with a fresh Congress with fresh ideas. And I think it might be a painful process getting to the point of Medicare for all. I'm sure there's going to be a lot of bumps in the roads and a lot of opposition from individuals, probably corporations and so forth in America, but I do think Medicare for all is the best way to go.
The next question is from Mr. Schoolcraft. What is your position on medical marijuana, and in what way will you push the federal government to push it forward?
I support medical marijuana. I am a healthcare provider, and I have seen the devastation that the opioid epidemic's had on our country. It is killing people daily. We've had more people die in the last year than died in Vietnam. Let that sink in. Where have we gone? The pharmaceutical companies have gone mad. They have pushed these drugs that are killing our kids, killing our fellow Missourians. Medical marijuana is an important part of helping solve that problem. There is proven treatment with it. There is proven benefits by it. You need to read your ballot initiatives and look at them closely and educate yourself and see which is the best path. But I support that. As far as the federal government goes, the DEA needs to keep their hands out of state work.
Yeah.
Mr. Jennings.
Personally, not only do I support medical marijuana, I support recreational marijuana. And it definitely needs to be removed from Schedule 1. It's nowhere near like heroin and so forth. And I know personally from experience that marijuana is a good medicine for my knees. At the end of the night, after walking the streets or whatever, it's great. And I want to make the point that I am responsible with it. I don't smoke it before town halls or whatever.
Hatfield.
Yeah, I support medical marijuana. One thing to look at what drug abusers do is a lot of times they're self-medicating. Many of these heroin addicts were addicted to opioids prescribed by doctors for countless years. I'm sure a lot of you read the story about the little town in West Virginia with about 500 people that had 2 million opiate pills going through it in a year. It's insane. There is an alternative, medical marijuana. It's an alternative to alcoholism. It's an alternative to heroin addiction, methamphetamine addiction. It's a good option, and it's been proven to help people. And it's been proven to help heroin addicts come off of heroin addiction. So I support it as well, recreational marijuana. Alcohol is legal. Cigarettes are legal. I believe marijuana should be legal. Thank you.
I support medical and recreational marijuana as well. One thing, though, that hasn't been talked about that should be talked about, though, is it's drug policy, and criminal justice reform. Because a lot of folks have gone to jail over marijuana. We got to have a look at those sentences. A lot of drug enforcement policy is fundamentally racist. As a person of color, I'm half brown anyway. I have reasons to be concerned about that. And so we ought to have a look at those sentences. Also, one of the reasons that people escape to drug use and then become involved with the cycle of addiction is due to economic stressors. So not only do we need to have a look at criminal justice reform and legalization, but we need to have a look at providing a viable, sustainable, healthy standard and quality of living for our citizens so they won't turn to drug use and then become addicted. Thank you.
So it seems that all are pro-marijuana. So as a follow-up, who decides what is medical and what is not? And what type of law would you write to answer that question? Let's start on the other side, Mr. Schoolcraft.
Some of the mistakes our government's made in the past is they give say the pharmaceutical industry free will to write what is good and what is bad. Or they give just doctors that idea, what is good, what is bad. There needs to be a panel come together. They need the people who love marijuana. They also need the people who are concerned about it. They need to sit down and have a conversation about it. But truly, the benefits of marijuana we've barely touched because of the stigma behind marijuana and because the regulations on research with marijuana. We need legislation that frees up that research, allows them to do research, and allows them to treat patients with it, and avoid the pharmaceutical industry that wants us to use their billion-dollar drugs that have very little benefit. We have been hoodwinked by the pharmaceutical industry in this country. So we need to write legislation that frees the hands to research marijuana, grow marijuana, treat with marijuana, and let people get the treatment that is best for them and not dictated by the pharmaceutical industry.
Who should make this decision?
Oh, I simply believe that people should make that decision for themselves. That's it.
Mr. Farmer.
The libertarian in me thinks people should as well. But should there be any concerns regarding risk to health, then I would think I would feel a whole lot better if we had research scientists have a look too. I'm not overly concerned because herbs or plants like this have been used for thousands of years with little negative effect. Most of the concern about marijuana is hysteria from another time, and we're way overdue to change it. So let people decide. They're adults. Thanks.
First of all, I want to say that I support New Approach Missouri's ballot initiative for medical marijuana. I think we should have as little government interference as possible when it comes to marijuana. I think we need to keep corporations and fat cat businesses out as much as possible in the marijuana field. And I think that we should have people who can start off producing marijuana to make it available to the general public. And I think it's going to bring a lot of revenue to the state when that happens. And we just need to realize that marijuana is useful and it does work, and to leave it up to the individual. And I also believe that we need to have responsibility.
The next question is from Mr. Jennings. Given Missouri Southern State University's 15% tuition increase and a drop in funding for higher education statewide, what are policies or plans you would want done to battle tuition and loan debt?
The state of Missouri, under Republican leadership, has really stuck as far as decreasing funding for higher education and diverting those funds to other areas. So I think that the funds should go where they're supposed to go. If they're supposed to go to education, then by God, they should go there and not be diverted to other areas. And so I think it's the government screwing with the money, that should go to education. And if we can get their hands off of it, I really think we can do it without more taxation and so forth. And there's some programs that can be cut in Missouri that can, we could use for education.
Mr. Farmer.
Yeah, I'm in favor of the Debt-Free College Act being sponsored by Senators Gillibrand and Schatz. Now, there's a lot of talk about tuition-free college, but the reason why I like this is because this plan includes the cost of housing, meal plans, books, and these sorts of things. Tuition is only 45% of the cost. I just wrote down some notes. I mentioned it earlier. $1 match for the states, and it makes the university administrators responsible for keeping costs down. The investment is about $95 billion across 50 states, but the return on investment is 10% through increased tax revenues and decreased spending on the safety net. So eventually this program pays for itself and we can have debt-free college, which is outstanding going forward. Now going backwards, I believe that we ought to have, I told you I was studying, but I'm very seriously studying. I'm this close to saying that this is what I want to do. But I think that student debt cancellation is possible because we gave away $1.5 trillion for nothing. In this case, we can free students forever. Thank you.
For me, getting some of that money back for the greater good of the people is there with our budget. Taking it from defense, taking it from Trump's border wall. Tuition on average is about $600 right now per month. That's more than half what a person making minimum wage makes. So right there, it's basically impossible. You go in debt. It's basically a life of servitude. It's sad that some students may die with debt. They'll live their whole life with it. They may never expand their lives. And I think we need to look at the other costs, such as books. Books are quite expensive, up into the hundreds of dollars for even used books. And with that burden on students, we can't have a more educated workforce or more educated voting force. Thank you.
So several things we need to do. Community colleges should be absolutely free. Technical schools should be absolutely free. There is no reason. We have convinced too many generations that to succeed in life, you must have a four-year degree. That is bogus. People come out with four-year degrees and are making $25,000 a year. When you can go to a technical school, a community college, contribute to your community, and make enough money to survive on, to live on, and to make a good income. We have for so long convinced people that you were lesser if you went to a community college or a tech school, and that is ridiculous. We have to refocus on what's important. Not everyone needs a four-year degree to be successful in life. We need to look at community colleges and technical schools and invest in them where it's absolutely free.
Next question is from Mr. Fromm. Since Missouri is the last state without a prescription drug monitoring program, and other states have weak programs, would you support a federal prescription drug monitoring program?
It's kind of a tough one. I almost want to turn it around, frankly, because I'd rather go after the pharmaceutical companies who are distributing this, and I'd rather go after the physicians, too, who are basically drug pushers. That county in West Virginia, 8 million pills in one county. But I think this is something for the states. I think the states should strengthen their monitoring programs. I think that, again, we should look at those other two pieces, those other two drivers, which are the pharmaceutical industry and the physicians themselves, who, some of them, frankly, are drug pushers. Thank you.
Anyone else? Mr. Jennings.
I don't trust the federal government. And to have federal drug monitoring and so forth on the federal level, you just don't know what they're going to do with that information and so forth down the road. So, nope.
So,
Schoolcraft.
what I want the federal government to do is say, if you're a state, you have to have a drug monitoring program. The federal government doesn't have to have a drug monitoring program, but every state should be forced to have one in place. When I work in the ER, you'll have patients come in that have gone to every ER in that city and in the region within the last 24 hours. You know how we find out? Walgreens will call us and go, hey, they've had 7 scripts filled in the last 12 hours for oxycodone. We can't look that up. We're the only state left. I can go to work and tell you if a person got a script in Arkansas yesterday, or Florida the day before, or Michigan, but I can't tell you here in Missouri. It was held up by one person, a senator in St. Joe who got a lot of money from the pharmaceutical industry. We need it, and if the federal government has to say every state will supply it, then that's what needs to happen.
Next question is from Mr. Schoolcraft. What is your experience working for working people and the poor?
You know, I was raised a much different life than most kids. My grandparents started the Good Samaritan Boys Ranch up on 13 and ran it for over a decade before they gave it to the state because they had over 100 boys there and it was getting too much for 2 private citizens to run. So when my parents got divorced when I was 5, we moved in with my grandparents. My grandpa treated us like a boy on the boys ranch. And we would spend time at the kitchen in Springfield helping serve meals. We were always out helping the community. That was our job. And throughout my career, that's what I've always been striving to do, is to always teach my kids to make a difference. You know, this last Christmas, my kids, they adopted families to help those in need. When I was a PA in Lebanon, Lebanon has a very large portion of poverty in their community. And these people would come to ER with their children, and they'd be like, we came to ER because we don't have health insurance, but I can't afford the medicine. So I would call the pharmacy and be like, put it on my tab. And my wife's like, how much did you spend this week? And it was usually around $300 or $400 a week, because I could not send a parent out with their child's hurting and their child's sick, knowing that I could give them the medicine to make a difference. It breaks my heart that in America we're in this position. This is America. We have parents who can't afford medicine for their kids. We have our grandparents who can't afford their medicine. You know, most of my work with poverty has been through the healthcare industry and through the fire department. You know, I can tell you story after story that it would break your heart to see the conditions. You know, that's our job, is to help our neighbors. And that's the way I was raised, and that's the way I've always tried to work, and that's the way I'm raising my kids.
Well, my experience working with people in poverty, it's kind of like just living it. You know, my fiance's in the service sector making about $8 an hour. As a journalist, I was essentially taking a vow of poverty. You know, so you know how that goes. I got into journalism to document poverty, which is what got me into this race. I was working with a woman who chose death because it was too hard to access health care. I used to go see her, and then one time I went back and she was gone. That is the suffering that people are living. There are grandmothers sleeping on the couch of their kids. It is real tough out there. I've talked to people who are digging through garbage bins now. Now, I can't help them because I'm kind of trying to survive myself. I'm here running because I am a working class candidate. Poverty is not something in the rearview mirror. This is real now for me as a congressional candidate, okay? And I don't have disposable income to be given away. If I do give some, I try, $1 here, $1 there. But it's, you know, I'm living it. I can tell you from personal experience.
Mr. Hatfield.
Yeah, I would say the one thing that I've seen is probably true of most kids when they're growing up. When they're real young, they don't know they're poor. When clothes start becoming important and what kind of fancy car they have in high school, that they really start being able to tell, I think. I grew up with 5 kids in 1 bedroom, sharing 3 beds. Father didn't make much money, go working with dad. Of course, I didn't get paid. You know, I've broken my arm in football practice, not had insurance. You know, the first thing you kind of hear is, oh boy, we're not going to have very much food to eat. And these are real things that many children are going through in this country. Like we said, children without insurance is probably one of the most saddest things I've ever seen. And we should be able to rise above that. We're the wealthiest nation on earth. Thank you.
Do you want me to, can I comment a second? There have been times in my life that I've barely scraped by, and there's been times in my life when I've been well off. And what's important to me is helping people. And if I am able to meet a need with an individual, I will do it. And that's basically it.
Okay. So, this is our final question, and it's for Mr. Farmer. What should be done with the use of fossil fuels in the U.S.?
Get rid of them. It's good news that Springfield, where I live, is taking in 30% of its energy from renewable sources. That's wonderful. You know, I think of the future, what it would look like if we got off of fossil fuel, cleaner air, clean water, get out of the Middle East. You know, our soldiers wouldn't have to be messed in these conflicts overseas. My specialty is foreign policy. There's China is going to be fighting for energy. Other large growing countries are fighting for energy. Where our energy needs will grow too. Fossil fuels simply will not carry us where we need to go into the future. We're going to have to change. And a lot of people recognize that. Detroit is fighting it a bit, but I think they're getting on board. Really, the issue is the GOP. They're the only party in the world that refuses to recognize, man-made, fossil fuel induced global warming. The rest of us know it. British Petroleum knows it. Dutch Shell knows it. Everyone in the world knows it except the GOP. Well,
They know it.
I think they do too.
They know it.
Well, all those jobs and all their money doesn't do much good if all of us are wiped out. A 10 degree, right now the projections are that we're going to see a 10 degree increase in summer temperatures in the next 20, 30 years here in the Midwest. And any farmer here can tell you that a heat wave of a few weeks will wipe out your crops. We have a very serious national, international security risk here from the fossil fuel industry. And so I support new technologies, new research, phasing out all those who depend on fossil fuel, all the industries that do, and move them into the future, even if they don't want to. Thanks.
Mr. Hatfield.
Yes, I believe we need to industrialize green energy on an international front, leading with the federal government, state governments, and our local governments. For many years, we have done the most outstanding things. We've been to the moon. We've had several advancements in all aspects of society. I like to point out that, at the beginning days of World War II, we did not have a big army, Navy, or Air Force. We were small, but we industrialized and created the weapons of war to defeat the enemies at the time. Well, our time now, the enemy is global warming. It's going to affect everybody and everybody in the future. So I think the federal government needs to lead the way, pass legislation, and create jobs in it, retrain coal miners, retrain people who drill for oil, change their jobs as industrial green jobs. Thank you.
Mr. Schoolcraft.
We absolutely have to get away from fossil fuel. But look what Trump did. He promised the coal miners they'd be back in work. He put tariffs on that's impacted our solar production here. We have to make progress forward. We need to set goals, just like Mr. Hatfield was saying. We set a goal to land on the moon. We need to set a goal to be independent of fossil fuels and stick with it and make that happen.
That's basically what I was going to say. I support Tulsi Gabbard's bill to be fossil fuel free. I think it's by year 2040. And that's the thing about it is we have to set a goal in order to achieve to be fossil fuel free. If we don't set a goal, things just aren't going to happen. But by setting a goal, we can achieve it. Thank you.
Thank you. I'd like to thank all our candidates who've done very well, staying on topic, and we appreciate that. I would like to end our forum by having each of you take 3 minutes. We know now more than we did about your policies. What I'd like you to do is tell us a little bit about yourselves as individuals and make a pitch, a final pitch why we should vote for you. 3 minutes. Mr. Jennings.
That was the 3 minutes started already.
It's not mandatory.
Oh, all right. Yeah, I was raised in an Air Force family, so I was able to go I'm not going to say I went all around the world, but I did go to several foreign countries, and I was exposed to different lifestyles and different cultures and so forth. And I think that had a lot to do with the person that I am today. And then I have a degree in economics from Missouri State University. And I didn't go into the corporate world with that degree. Instead, I became self-employed and entrepreneur in the flea market business and buying and selling Beanie Babies and so forth. I was the person, that you weren't able to find the Beanie Babies for your kids. And I really care about people. I'm an activist. I go to demonstrations. I go to protests. And when I go, I'm holding a sign, I'm screaming, and I really participate in that. Because in order to have change in America, we have to be the change. And we just can't sit by on the sideline and watch America go down the drain. So that's one reason why I am running for Congress. And then I'm running for the people, and the people come first. And screw the corporations, screw the big businesses, because they do not have your interests in heart. And honestly, the federal government does not have your interests in heart. Billy Long does not answer to you. He answers to his donors, his big PAC people. And he thinks that he has it made in Southwest Missouri just because he has an R behind his name. Well, things are different today, and we cannot predict the future from past performance as far as politics in Southwest Missouri. So I think if we hit it hard, we do have a good chance of having a Democrat congressman in Southwest Missouri in 2018. And I would like to say also that in the event I do not win the primary, I will fully support whoever does win that primary and work hard for them, because each one of these individuals I've spent time with, and they are a hell of a lot better than Billy Long ever will be.
So, as I said, I'm the first Hispanic to ever run for office, but I'm an 8th-generation American with a foot in the past and in the future. I'm the next generation, frankly. I'm 47 years old. I've been around. I grew up here, graduated from Mansfield High. I went to school back in Boston, graduated from Georgetown School of Foreign Service, same as President Clinton, and 27 current congressmen, 7 U.S. senators, 21 congressmen. I believe it is something like that. I'm trained in public service. I am trained to get Congress under control. I'm trained to work with the White House and other leaders. Many world leaders come out of where I come from. But I grew up in a trailer house. I grew up pulling water out of a well. Like I said, I took that vow of poverty to become a journalist. I operate on facts and truth. As a journalist, that's what we're trained to do. And I think that would be refreshing in politics, is to have that. I don't do spin. I don't do rhetoric. And I find all of that stuff very offensive. We have operators here in the district that do that, and I find it very, very offensive, and you should too as voters. And I'm letting you know that now. I am a working class candidate, and we need to have working class people in Congress because it is not made of us. It is not a government of the people, for the people, by the people. I worked on Wall Street at AIG, and I saw enough there to know that Wall Street will not regulate itself. It has to be regulated. So I was at AIG in Latin America. I was in Los Angeles at a Swiss private bank watching people invest more money than, for 200 years, okay? I believe in equality, social and economic inequality are the issues of our times. And that if we don't deal with these issues, our country will fall apart. That's why I've selected these policies to rebuild the middle class and to give workers power and to give the poor the dignity they deserve, that Americans deserve. I think it's extremely important to consider who can win against Billy Long. I think I'm the only candidate that can win against him, because when you go into my background, all you're going to find is a kid that left home, went and got experience in places that matter. New York. I lived in China and DC. What happens far away affects us here. Just being here and only staying here isn't any sort of recommendation for public office, because it's a big, complicated world, and we need people to be able to operate in that world. I swam in the ocean, and I did okay. Actually, I did better than okay. I went to National Geographic and Discovery Channel, where I was a TV producer. And then I decided to come home. And I came home to be with my family. I'm sitting here today. I take my mother's name, De La Torre, to honor women and to honor my mother. My dad, over there, he'll greet the hell out of you at Walmart. Good man. Okay? Good man. My heart is with working people, and it always will be. I could have made a lot of money. I could have stayed in New York, but I came back home because this is where I can be useful.
Mr. Hatfield.
Hello. A little bit about myself. I grew up in Southwest Missouri, mostly raised down in Newton and McDonald County. So I'm from the corner. Graduated from East Newton High School. I joined the Army when I was 18. Served for 11 years. Spent 6 of those years overseas on 3 combat deployments. I got to see what our current status of Afghanistan is, what we went through with Iraq. I got to live in Germany, where they've had universal health care since the 1880s. I've got to see a lot of the good qualities in Europe, things that we can adopt. We don't always have to be the guy on the street who has a new idea. We can learn from other people. I feel like I'm the best candidate because I've always been at the end of bad policy. Much like I said, 11 years of it. I got to see the fraud, waste, and abuse of our tax dollars and the lives lost. You know, I didn't go overseas and watch my friends die so we could take 30 million people's health care. It's a shame. It's a shame. What were we defending? What are our congressmen defending? We have to stand up. And I don't usually write speeches, but I wrote a little speech. And I want to read it to you now. I want to say this to the progressives, liberals, Bernie-crats, the center, middle, and far left in America. The Democrat Party is the party of progress, liberalism, Bernie Sanders, and the entire left. I want to say this to the Democratic Party. Progressives, liberals, Bernie-crats are the people of the Democratic Party, and we all must work together. I want to say this to the fiscal conservatives, moderates, libertarians, and to those that may simply wish to increase defense spending. The only liberty in war is in a war of defense. If you're hurting the people you're willing to defend by misusing their tax dollars on defense, I wouldn't call it defense spending. I would call it a bad budget. I want to say this to the 43% of Americans who claim to be independents. We as Americans are all independent. We have the free choice to have an independent vote for who we know is the best candidate. We must use that ability to know and independently choose our elected officials. I want to say this to all Americans. Turn off the news feed for a day, whether or not it's through your phone, the TV, your computer, or the radio. Take that time to talk to your friends, families, and neighbors about their needs and worries. To take a drive to a town or down a country road and look at the state of our infrastructure. To look at a medical bill, an insurance premium, or the cost of medicine in this country. To ask why books can cost as much as half of the already unbearable tuition at state-funded colleges. We must bring people together, work on the issues that we agree with, and concentrate on helping one another. Thank you.
Mr. Schoolcraft.
First off, I want to say thank you to Southwest Missouri Democrats. Thank you for doing this, and thank you for hosting it. It's an important step for this process. As said, I grew up in the big town of Bodark, raised by my grandparents and my mom. Spent a lot of time in church, Sunday nights, Wednesdays, a couple weeks during the summer. You know, grew up, and we learned the value of hard work. I went away to school up in Kansas City, UMKC, came back immediately after because I love this area. This is where I wanted to raise a family. I got my associate's degree from OTC after I got a bachelor's degree, which kind of worked that backwards. Became a paramedic and did that for almost 20 years. I was in charge of the medical response to the Joplin tornado from Cox. I spent 10 days here. I've seen so many devastating events and seen the Missouri and Southwest Missourians in their darkest hours, their time of need, and seen the effects of the policies that this administration has done and previous administrations. I've raised my family here in Southwest Missouri. I have 3 beautiful kids and a beautiful wife, Noah, Eli, and Cora, 9, 7, and 3. And I want them to be proud. I want them to have a better life than I did. I too grew up poor. Well, I mean, you remember eating dinner and you only each had one piece of meat, and if you were still hungry, you learned how to eat bread with gravy on it. and tomatoes with gravy on it if it was summertime. You know, that's how we were raised. But we loved our life because it taught us value. It taught us what it meant to earn a dollar. It taught us how hard people have to work to get ahead. You know, that's why I stayed here in Southwest Missouri, because I love it. I love the people. I volunteered every spare moment to help people in their time of need. I think that's what, you know, I don't ever want to talk ill of my opponents, but I think truly, if I had to say what sets me apart is, and Vince, you've raised a family here too. You know what it's like. The struggles of raising a family in Southwest Missouri, you know, paramedic wages, that's a little rough. People think paramedics are rich, not even close. But I ran because I know those struggles. I know what it's like to raise a family here in Southwest Missouri. I've seen those mothers cry over health insurance and cry over the devastating cutting funding to education, cutting funding to all these programs that are supposed to improve the lives of our citizens, and we've forgotten them. My grandpa joined the Air Force back when he was 17 during World War because his brother had been taken as a POW. His plane was shot down, and he was sent home to die. You know what he did? He didn't die. His family took care of him. He said, the rest of my life, I'm going to look out for those people the rest of the world's forgotten and given up on. We're going to fight for those people. And that's what he instilled in me. I have it's like 10 seconds left, so I'm speeding through. But that's why I'm doing what I'm doing. I don't want people to be forgotten about or given up on. And if they are, I want to be the one to fight for them. And that's why I want your vote in August.
Thank you very much. I'd like for us all to give a big round of applause to these gentlemen who are candidates and put themselves out there in the public. We appreciate them, but you are important too. You're here tonight to learn about these candidates. You are being good citizens. We have 111 people here. I believe that's one of our biggest crowds. Well done, well done. We want to become better informed, and we know that you are informed by the quality of the questions that you submitted. They were excellent questions. They were policy questions, and I think we're all better for the questions that you gave us tonight. So give your house a big hand. We appreciate very much. So this will be the close of our forum, and thank you again for coming. Thank you.
Thank you. Thanks for coming, everybody.
Thanks for coming.